Let's bow down our head, close our eyes, and let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day and the many blessings we have received. We ask that you would bless the work that we do here in our online class and give us patience, courage, and perseverance to face whatever challenges may come. Bless our teachers and students with the wisdom to learn from each other. Amen.
A pleasant good morning to each and everyone, especially to our Prof. Victoria Bagtas. We are the presenter of Group 1, the source of long-term and short-term. The members are Tom Terraza, Lavry Lee Bernardo, Aliyah Torres, Ana Sharon, Angelica Flores, Jenny Gonza, John Cyril Lena, Ruthlin S. Cotto.
And we will discussing the topic sources of short-term and long-term. First, let's find out objectives of our presentation. Objectives. By the end of discussion, the learner will be able to define and understand the sources of short-term and long-term financing. Explain the importance and relevance of financing. Analyze the given topic of the presenters. And lastly, demonstrate the sources and uses of long-term and short-term funds. On behalf of that, I'm Tommy Torrillos, discussing the long-term and short-term financing. First, I'm discussing the financing. Financing is a very important part of every business. Firms often need financing to pay for their assets, equipment, and other important items. Financing can be either long-term and short-term. As is obvious, long-term financing is more expensive as compared to short-term financing. There are different vehicles through which long-term and short-term financing is made available. This chapter deals with the major vehicles of both types of financing. The common source of financing are the capital is generated by the firm itself and sometimes in a capital form external funders, which is usually obtained after issuance of new debt and equity. A firm management is responsible for matching the long-term and short-term financing mix. The mix is applicable to the assets that are to be financed as closely as possible. Long-term financing is usually needed for acquiring new equipment, R&D, cash flow enhancement, and company expansion. Some of the major methods from long-term financing are discussed later. Number 1. Equity financing. Equity financing includes preferred stock and common stock. This method is less risky in respect to cash flow commitments. However, equity financing often results in the dissolution of share ownership and it also decreases earning. The cost associated with equity is generally higher than the cost associated with debt, which is again a deductible expense. Therefore, equity financing can also result in enhancement hurdle rate that may cancel any reduction in the cash flow risk. Number 2 is corporate bond. A corporate bond is a special kind of bond issued by any corporation to collect money effectively in an aim to expand its business. This is term usually used for long-term debt instruments that generally maturity date after 1 year after their issue date as the minimum. An associate call option that permits the issuer to redeem it before it reaches the maturity. All other types of bonds that are known as convertible that offer investors the option to convert the bonds to equity. Number 3 is capital notes. Capital notes are types of convertible security that are exercisable into shares. They are one type of equity vehicle. Capital notes resemble warrants except the fact that usually don't have the expiry date or an exercise price. That is why the entire consideration the company aims to receive for the further insurance of the share is generally paid at the time of issuance of capital notes. Many times, capital notes are issued a debt for equity swap restructuring instead of debt and the present company provides its creditor with convertible securities and capital notes. Enhanced dilution occurs later. Let's talk about short-term. Short-term financing with a time duration up to 1 year is used to help corporations increase inventory orders, payrolls, and daily supply. Short-term financing can be done using the following financial instrument. Number one is commercial paper. Commercial paper is an unsecured promissory note with a prime note maturity time of 1 to 365 days in the global money market. Originally, it is used by large corporations to raise money to meet the short-term debt obligation. It's backed by bank that issued a corporation but promised to pay the face value of maturity. Firms with excellent credit ratings can sell their commercial papers at a good price. Number two is asset-backed commercial paper. It is collateralized by other finance asset. Is a every short-term instrument with finance institutions. Number three is promissory note. It's negotiate instrument where the maker or issuer makes an issueless promise in writing to pay back instead of some money to pay a fixed maturity date or a demand of the payee under specific terms. Number four, asset-based loan. It's a type of loan which often short-term and secured by company asset, real estate accounts receivable. Inventory equipment are the most common asset used back the loan. The given loans is either backed by a single category of asset or by combination of asset. Number five, repurchase agreement. Repurchase agreement are extremely short-term loans. They are usually a maturity of less 2 weeks. Most frequently, they have maturity of just 1 day. Repurchase agreements are arranged by selling securities with an agreement to purchase them back at fixed cost on a given date. Number 6. Letter of credit. A financial institution or a similar party issues this document to a seller of good or service the seller provides. The issuer will definitely pay the seller for good or services delivered to a third-party buyer.
Cash credit is a short-term source of financing for a company. In other words, a cash credit is a short-term loan extended to a company by a bank. It enables a company to withdraw money from bank account without keeping a credit balance. The account is limited to only borrowing up to the borrowing limits. Also, interest is charged on the amount borrowed and not the borrowing limit. A line of credit is a flexible loan from a financial institution that consists of a defined amount of money that you can access as needed. You can repay what you borrow from a line of credit immediately or over time in regular minimum payments. Interest is charged on a line of credit as soon as money is borrowed. Bill discounting is short-term finance for traders wherein they can sell unpaid invoices due on a future date to financial institution in lieu of a commissions. The bank purchases the bill before its due date and credits the bill's due date directly from the debtor. This helps the traders optimize their cash flows and business cycles without disturbing their balance sheets. Lenders usually offer tenors of up to 180 days while offering bill discounting facilities. An overdraft is a borrowing facility that has approved credit limits and linked to a bank account. It can be drawn at any time and it's most useful for day-to-day practices expenses. The limit can be designed to fit your cash flows requirements at the time and you don't need to use full amount you have drawn. You pay no interest. Most lenders have a overdraft product. And as with all solutions, the finest details are important as one size definitely does not fit all. Term loans, they are offered at both floating and fixed rates of interest. Their repayment tenure of terms loans ranges between 12 months to 60 months.
So what is trade credit? Trade credit is a business-to-business agreement in which a customer can purchase goods without paying cash up front and paying the supplier at a later scheduled date. Usually, businesses that operate with trade credits will give buyers 30, 60, or 90 days to pay with the transaction recorded through an invoice. Trade credit can be thought of as type of 0% financing increasing a company's assets while deferring payment for a specified value of goods or services to some time in the future and requiring no interest to be paid in relation to the repayment period. Trade credit is a type of commercial financing in which a customer is allowed to purchase goods or services and pay the supplier at a later scheduled date. Trade can be a good way for businesses to free up cash flow and finance short-term growth. Trade can create complexity for financial accounting depending on the accounting method used. Trade credit financing is usually encouraged globally by regulators and can create opportunities for new financial technology solutions. Suppliers are usually at a disadvantage with a trade credit as they have sold goods but not received payments. Trade credit is an advantage for a buyer. In some cases, certain buyers may be able to negotiate longer trade credit repayment term, which provides an even greater advantage. Often sellers will have specific criteria for qualifying for trade credit. What is installment credit? Installment credit is simply a loan you make fixed payments toward over a set period of time. The loan will have an interest rate, repayment term, and fees which will affect how much you pay per month. Common types of installment loans include the mortgage, car loans, and personal loans like other credit accounts. Timely payments toward installment loans can help you build and sustain strong credit scores. Your credit scores will dedicate whether you qualify for an installment loan and your interest rates and terms if you do. Here's what you need to know about installment loans, how they work, and how they affect your credit. When you take out an installment loan, you borrow a fixed sum of money and make monthly payments of a specific period and a specific amount until the loan is paid off. An installment loan can have a repayment period of months or years. Its interest rate could be fixed or variable, meaning it can go up or go down in the future. Installment loans also may come with additional fees, such as origination or late fees. It's crucial to check the loan agreement carefully before taking out installment loan to understand exactly how much you will pay. Typical installment loans include mortgage. A mortgage is a loan used to buy a home. The home itself acts as collateral, so if you are unable to make payments, your lender could take possession of it. Mortgage generally come into 15 to 30 years term and will have either a fixed or adjustable interest rate. You will also pay closing costs, fees, and potentially private mortgage insurance if your down payment covers less than 20% of the purchase price of the home. Car loans. Like mortgage, car loans typically requires a down payment. The more you put down, the smaller your installment loan will be. A car loan uses your vehicle as collateral, similar to mortgage, meaning your car could be repossessed if you don't pay the loan as agreed. Car loan terms are typically 36 to 72 months, but longer terms are becoming increasingly commonly. As the first quarter of 2019, 38% of new passenger vehicles loans had terms of 61 to 72 months according to Experian data. Personal loan. A personal loan can be used for many purposes, including consolidating debt or financing a home renovation. Personal loans are secured, meaning they are not backed by collateral like mortgage or car loans are. As a high result, their interest rate can be high, up to 36% depending on your credit scores. You can generally take out a personal loan between $1,000 and $50,000 with repayment term of 2 to 5 years. How are installment credit and revolving credit different? Unlike an installment credit account, a revolving credit account lets you carry a balance from month to month. Credit cards and home equity lines of credit are example of revolving accounts. On a revolving credit account, you decided how much charge every month and how much to repay. When you carry a balance from month to month, the interest you will incur adds to your total balance. While you aren't required to pay off the full balance each month, the lender will provide a credit limit or maximum amount you are allowed to charge.
It will also assign you a minimum monthly payment, which can change depending on your balance. If you miss payments or you are late, your credit score will suffer.
Consumer credit or customer advances. Many times the suppliers or manufacturers of goods insist on advance by customers along with orders. Such advances represent part of the price and carry no interest. A manufacturer can meet his short-term needs at least partly through customer advances. The period of such credits depends upon the time taken to deliver the goods. The availability of the credit depends or degree of competition in the market, customer of the trade and usage and reputation of the suppliers. Examples such as banks, credit unions, and credit card companies, with the intention that the borrowed funds will be repaid over time with interest. Consumer credit allows individuals to make immediate purchase or cover expenses that they may not have sufficient cash on hand to afford. Consumer credit allows individuals to make immediate purchase or cover expenses that they may not have sufficient cash on hand to afford. It can be used for various purposes such as buying car, purchasing furniture, paying for education, or covering unexpected expenses. Account receivable financing. Under this agreement, the accounts receivable of a business concern are bought by a financing company, or money may be advanced on security of account receivable. Normally, 60% of the value of accounts receivable pledged is advanced by the finance companies. If there are any bad debts, it is to be borne by the business concern itself. This account receivable is right of property and a right to collect the amount from the client. This method of financing is very popular in the country. The advantages of accounts receivable financing include improved cash flow, risk mitigation, no additional debt, simplified collection, and flexing funding.
Objectives of long-term financing. These are the 8 objectives of long-term financing. Purchase new asset or equipment. Equipment can be considered both a liability and an asset. For example, if you have a loan on your equipment, it is a liability as an asset. The equipment can help you increase sales. However, equipment is not a current asset, but a non-current asset. To finance the permanent part of the working capital, it must be financed through long-term sources of capital such as equity or reference shares, debentures, long-term loans, and retained earnings of the business. Fixed assets should never be financed through short-term sources. The minimum amount of current assets which is required to conduct the business smoothly during the year is called permanent working capital. For example, investments required to maintain the minimum stock of raw materials or to cash balance. To enhance the cash flow in the firm. Ways to increase cash flow for a business include offering discounts for early payments, leasing, not buying, improving inventory, conducting consumer credit check, and using high-interest savings account. Give your customer a variety of payments options, such as credit card and direct deposit. Offer incentives like discount for early payments if you have afford to. Request a deposit for special or large orders. Regularly follow up on outstanding payments and debts. To invest in R&D operations. Investing in R&D will make you stand out against your competitions. With a strong competitive advantage, it is extremely easy to gain market leadership. It can also allow your business to gain intellectual property and patents, which can become highly valuable and even provide a secondary sources of income. To construct or build new construction projects. These are the example of construction projects. Residential buildings like single and multi-family homes, commercial buildings such as offices or warehouses, industrial facilities like factories or large-scale production facilities, infrastructure projects such as roads, bridges, airports, or water system. To develop a new product. New products and services are the lifeblood of all businesses. Investing in their development isn't optional extra, it is crucial to business growth and profitability. But embarking on the development process is risky. It needs considerable planning and organization. Design marketing strategies or increased facilities. A marketing strategy refers to a business's overall game plan for reaching prospective consumers and turning them into customers of their products or services. A marketing strategy contains the company's value proposition, key brand messaging, data or target customer demographics, and other high-level elements. Effective marketing strategies can play a crucial role in boosting the brand image of national facilities and art museums. Expand business operations. Business expansion refers to a growth of a business to a stage at which it seeks out additional options to generate more profit. Strategies to expand your business. First, optimize your existing market. Growing your business doesn't always mean getting new customers. It can always mean selling more to your existing customers. Two, claim a niche market. Third, move into a new market. Fourth, seek referrals. Fifth, partner with other businesses. Sixth, franchising.
And now, we will talk about the internal sources of long-term finance. Retained earnings. It refers to the profits that the company has set aside over time to satisfy its future capital demand. Start from the word retained, which is defined as continuing to have something or to keep possession of something. Retained earning is the money that is earned in a period of time after the deduction of any dividends paid to the shareholders. These are the company's free savings, which come at no expense and are accessible without having to pay interest. And this saved income can be used for a wide range of purposes, including boosting production capacity, adding salespeople, or releasing a new product. Retained earning is a significant indicator of a company's financial stability, since it shows the net income that a company has conserved over time and may thus reinvest in the business. In other words, having retained earnings illustrate that the company is succeeding by having an excess profit that it can use in future expenses or for the innovation of the business.
External sources of long-term finances. External sources of finance are defined as funds coming from sources outside of the company, such as banks, investors, financial institutions, or other individual lenders. External sources of finance are very helpful for business owners, as it is often hard for them to secure the necessary investment to get the business ongoing. There are limited amount of assets one can invest in their own business. And this is the example for external finance There are many different potential investors that someone starting or developing a business can approach. Some might go to their friends or family members, whereas other may decided to go to a financial institution, and this is the main external finance example include is family or friends, bank loans, mortgages, overdrafts, issuing shares, government grants, and trade credit. One of the main advantages of external sources of finance is that it enhances a company's growth. One of the primary reasoning businesses seek external capital is to support expansion initiative that would otherwise be impossible for the firm to fund on its own. Equity capitals refers to the capital collected by a company from its owners and other shareholders in exchange for a portion of ownership in the company. The company is not liable to repay the fund raised through equity financing. The equity finance can be obtained through self-funding by owners, offering partnership to friends and family, private investors, stock market insurance, venture capitalists, and so on. In a simple terms, we can analyze that the entity is a sole proprietorship. The equity section is referred to as owner's equity. In contrast, it is indicated as stockholders' equity for a corporation. How to calculate equity capital cost? The equity capital calculate method can vary based on the entity's financial context. However, the general practice is to look at the company's balance sheet or statement of profit and loss account to pick the value of total assets and total liabilities. Total equity equal to total assets minus to total liabilities. The balance sheet portrays the value of total assets as the sum of total liabilities and equities. Hence, total equity is the difference between total assets and liabilities. Preference share capital is the funds generated by a company through issuing preference shares, also known as preference stock. Preference shareholders have the first right to receive dividends even before equity shareholders. If the company enters bankruptcy, preferred stockholders are entitled to be paid from company assets before common stockholders. There are four types of preferred stock: cumulative granted, non-cumulative, participating, and convertible. May I call Mr. Liena to discuss about the term loan and debenture?
Term loan. A term loan provides borrowers with a lump sum of cash upfront in exchange for specific borrowing terms. Term loans are normally meant for established small business with sound financial statement. In exchange for a specified amount of cash, the borrower agrees to the certain repayment schedule with a fixed or floating interest rate. Term loans carry a fixed or variable interest rate and a set maturity date. If the process are used to finance the purchase of an asset, the useful life of that asset can impact the repayment schedule. Loan requires collateral and a rigorous approval process to reduce the risk of the default or failure to make payment. Debenture. A debenture is a marketable security that business can issue to obtain long-term financing without needing to put up collateral or dilute their equity. A debenture is a type of long-term business debt not secured by any collateral. It is a funding option for campaigns with solid finance that want to avoid issuing share and diluting their equity. Debenture can also be useful for campaigns that don't want to tie up asset or who lack collateral for a traditional loan. Some debenture are convertible. The owner of the convertible debenture has the right to convert the loan into share of the issuing business under the conditions set out in the debenture certificate. A debenture can also be partially convertible, which means part of its value can be converted into share and cash. Debentures are unsecured bonds or debt instruments released by the government authority or company to finance its long-term, capital-intensive projects. For example, a government raising fund to construct road for the public. Debenture holders are the creditors of the issuing company, unlike a shareholders who is the owner.
Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Kenya, Zambia, Mongolia and Laos. What do these countries have in common? These countries are either on the brink of bankruptcy or have already gone bankrupt. According to a report by the Associated Press, a dozen poor countries are on the verge of collapse under the weight of billions of dollars in foreign loans that they had taken from China. These countries are using their foreign currency reserves to pay the interest on these loans, eventually taking a hit on their tax revenue, which is needed to keep schools open, provide electricity, pay for food and fuel. The main factor that is driving such a turbulence is China's reluctance to forgive debt and its extreme secrecy about how much money it has loaned and on what terms, which has kept other major lenders from stepping in to help. According to the analysis done by Associated Press, these countries had as much as 50% of their foreign loans from China, and most were devoting more than a third of government revenue to paying off the foreign debt. Zambia and Sri Lanka have already gone into default, unable to pay even the interest on these loans. Pakistan, on the other hand, laid off millions of textile workers because it cannot afford to keep its machines running. Similarly, Kenya hasn't been able to pay thousands of civil service workers to save cash and pay foreign loans. Sri Lanka has already defaulted last year, leading to 500,000 job losses and inflation touching 50%. Experts believe that unless China begins to show some leniency on these loans, the financial turbulence in these countries not improving anytime soon. In the past, big government lenders like the United States, France and Japan would work out deals to forgive some debt. But China, it's played a different game here. China refused to engage in airy multinational talks and had barred the borrowing countries from telling non-Chinese lenders the terms and conditions of the loans. In the middle of all such turmoil, Chinese lenders refused pleas from Zambia to suspend interest payments for a few months. This, in turn, led to Zambia using up its foreign reserves, leading the country into poverty. Researchers found that Zambia owed $6.6 billion to Chinese state-owned banks, double of what many analysts had expected previously. These countries now find themselves stuck in a vicious loan cycle. China won't soften its stance on repayment, and IMF will not offer low-interest loans if the money is just going to be used to pay interest to China.